Good morning, church. Hey, I'm so excited to see you today, and I'm so excited about this morning and what we get to share with you all. In just over, or right at 2 weeks ago, we started on a journey to Belize and spent about 9 days there. And we're excited to share about our experience, and we're excited to share about what God did in Belize and in our hearts. But before we do, we have a slideshow video that we would like to show you. So we'll take a look at that right now.
Standing here in your presence, in a grace so relentless, I am won by perfect love, wrapped within the arms of heaven, in a peace that lasts forever, sinking deep in mercy seat. I'm wide awake, drawing closer by grace, and all my heart is yours. All fear removed, I breathe you in, I lean into your your When I'm lost, you pursue me. Lift my head to see your glory, Lord of all. So beautiful. Here in you I find shelter, captivated by the splendor of your face. My secret place, I'm wide awake, drawing closer by grace, and all my heart is yours. All fear removed, I breathe you in, I lean into your love. Your love. Your love so deep is washing over me. Your face is all I see. You are my everything. Jesus Christ, you are my one desire. Lord, hear my only cry, to know you all my life. Love so deep is washing over me. Your face is all I seek. You are my everything. Jesus Christ, you are my one desire. Lord, hear my only cry, to know you all my life. I'm wide awake, drawing closer by grace, and all my heart is yours. All fear removed, I breathe you in, I lean into your love. Your love.
Guys, stand up for just a second. If you'll take a quick scan of the group, you will notice that 9 out of the 13 of us are high school students. Now, I'm not going to tell you which ones. You got to guess. But you guys can have a seat. That in and of itself, church, should be something to celebrate. That we had such a huge interest in going on this trip because it's summertime. And there are 1,000 different things that students could be doing during the summer. But they chose to go to another country and be the hands and feet of Jesus. And so I'm going to ask these guys, how many of you have ever been out of the country, or how many of you have never been out of the country before this trip? Just raise your hand. Okay, how many of you, this was your missions trip? Yeah, so we had a lot of new experiences and, going on this missions trip. And one thing I want to share with you is, one thing you'll notice from the slideshow video, you might not see a lot of transformation in material things. And what do I mean by that? I mean that most of the time, when we go on a missions trip and we come back and we show pictures and things like that, you'll see maybe like a school or an orphanage or a church that we've done work on one of their buildings or something like that. That's not the kind of missions trip that this was. This missions trip was a little bit different, and I'll get into that in just a second. But though you may not see physical transformation in material things, let me tell you what, there was some transformation that happened right here in the people's hearts and in our hearts. And so I'm excited to share with you this morning and have them share with you this morning about some of the things that we did. But I just want to let you know that in preparation for this trip, going into this trip, I made it my goal. I said, you know what? I don't want to go into a country and prescribe to them what I think they need because I don't live there. So I had some meetings with our host team. They were incredible. Mr. Richard Smith and Rosa Smith. They were the couple housed us during our 9 days there. It was so incredibly sweet, and they poured into us. But I asked them, what is the biggest need in Belize? And they said, really and truly, the biggest need that we have is for people to come in and help us to reach our community. And I said, well, man, we got the team for that. We've got the team for that. And so that's what we did. And so I'm going to I'm going to ask you guys some questions. There should be some microphones around you if you'll go ahead and switch those on. Team, I want you to let the church know what are some of the things that we did during our time together to reach out to the people in our community. Anybody can answer. Just name a couple things. JoJo, what's up, man? What did we do?
One of the main things that we did that I think probably resonated mostly with us and the people of Belize was the evangelizing that we did. How we went door to door in a village called Tea Kettle and another village called Roaring Creek, and we just asked people if they needed prayer, and we would pray for them if they let us.
Yeah. What's some other things, guys? What's some other things we did during our week? Caroline or Jacob, go ahead. Tell us what some things we did.
We also went to the church and prayed for anybody that needed praying for. We also had a couple nights of VBS that were amazing. I thought we changed a lot of lives there. So
That's good.
Well, we sweat a lot.
Yeah, we did sweat a lot. That's right.
But other than that, we also went to a place called the Palm Center, which was a place for the mentally handicapped. And then we went to a hospital and we cut grass and we painted buildings for them. Yeah, that's right. Pass it down and somebody else think of a couple more things while you're doing that. I want to share with these guys something. So our host, Mr. Richard, he told us, he says, look, I want you guys to go to the Palm Center. He said that they got some grass that's about this tall. He said that they desperately need help cutting because since it's so high, the patients can't go out. Legally, they can't let the patients go outside of the hospital and get the outdoor time that they need because the grass is so high. And we just don't have the machines to cut the grass or the manpower.
And so we were like, all right, that sounds good. This was our very first day. And so doing some labor. And so we go with one of the folks from that worked with Mr. Richard and Miss Rosa, one of their staff members. We got into his truck and into the van that we were taking, and we loaded up the lawnmowers and the weed eaters, and we headed that way. And as soon as we got there, the guy came out of the building, and he was like, "Oh, so glad you guys are here." He said, yes, we could use your help. He said, if 6 of you can maybe cut the grass, he says, I've got some painting that needs to be done on the inside of the hospital. If you guys don't mind helping us do that. And we were like, yes, we were eager. We were ready to do it. And so we did. We spent our whole morning and afternoon there cutting that grass, painting those walls. And we got back to our host home that night. And we were talking about the things we did. And Mr. Richard said, guys, I thought you went to the Palm Center. And we were like, we did. We cut grass. We painted, They had a lot of things for us to do. And he said, well, he called me today, the guy from the Palm Center, and said, hey, where was your guys at today? Because I was waiting for them, and they never showed up. What had happened was the person that's on staff with Mr. Richard, he misunderstood him, and he said the hospital, not the mental hospital. So he went to a completely different place. And that guy, let me tell you, he was ready for us because he had a list of things for us to do. So we didn't think twice about it, but there was a little bit of mix-up there. And that was really, kind of the theme for our trip, is just kind of going with the flow and just doing whatever needed to be done as, as we believed the Spirit led us to do. And so they needed some help because that grass was high at the hospital. But finally, on Thursday, we were able to line things up and go to the Palm Center and do the things that we had said that we were going to do from the beginning. But is there any more things that you guys can think of that we did during the week while we were there?
On Wednesday, another group from Arkansas was coming up, and they had about 23 people. And so on Wednesday, we stayed at the radio station, or at My Refuge, and we had like a cleanup day there, and I know some of the girls cleaned up in the kitchen and stuff like that, and one group of guys they had a bunch of appliances out in the open, and so they were moving them out towards their storage area. And a few other guys, we built a bunk room and kind of cleaned it out for the other group to come in and stay in there too. So
yeah, that's good. That's good. We did some prayer walks while we were there. We went into the city and went into what they have on Tuesdays and Saturdays. It's called Market Day. It would kind of be like going to the farmer's market for us, but all these vendors come to the city and they're selling things. And we went into the city at that moment, and we just started going around and trying to find people that we could pray for, evangelize to. And we actually had a chance to walk through some of the government buildings. So we got to see what would be considered like their White House. We got to go into the Prime Minister's office or his headquarters. And Mr. Richard, he's a guy that just does not take the answer no well. And so he goes about just where he wants to. And you can tell because as we were going through the market and as we were going through the places, everybody knew who Mr. Richard was. I mean, this guy was a community man. And so we walked with him and we did some praying. And we had some really cool opportunities to meet some different people and talk to them about Jesus Christ. And, I was talking with Miss Rosa, who is Mr. Richard's wife, on the last day. And she said, I am so glad that you guys came to be a part here in Belize. She said, we refer to you guys as our peace group because you guys were just so accommodating. You guys just had such a sweet spirit about you the whole week. And you were willing to do whatever we needed to have done. And she said, we're so thankful that you could come. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking all the missionary groups that come in, they do the door-to-door evangelism, That was my assumption. That's just something that was on the list to do. But she tells me, and guys, I don't even know if I told you this, but Miss Rosa, she said, we've been needing a group to come in to help us go into our villages. They said, we do it on our own, as husband and wife, we go out. They said, but we can never cover all the areas. She said, but your group came in and was willing to go door to door talking to people about Jesus. And they said, now we've had missionary groups come in the past who said that they would do that, but they would always back out because they were afraid. And then I was like, oh my goodness, that is crazy to me. And she said, you've got a strong spiritual group. And, you know, to me, that just laid an impression on my heart because we're talking about majority of high school students right here, 4 of us adults, but majority are high school students. And so that's what kind of stood out to me about what Miss Rosa said. And so I want to ask some of the guys this morning and girls, what made you want to be a part of this trip? What led you to make the decision to come and be a part of this trip?
All right, so for me, it was kind of like an ongoing thing. Like I've been in church for a while, so I've heard about like the trips to Ghana and the trips to Santiago, Dominican Republic, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And like hearing like those stories, they made me like feel good, I guess you would say, about the church and like what we could do in another country and how big of an impact we had on them. So I wanted to go do another mission trip thing to like serve the people. I wanted to see what we could offer, like from like brothers and sisters in Christ to the other people like of the world.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't go to church here, as y'all probably realize, like, who's this girl? But I've been coming to the Sunday night services at the youth, with the youth, and all these boys around me, they always get me to come. But I had never really been on a mission trip, and I'd heard stuff about them, and I was like, well, what better way to experience it than to learn about it than to just go myself? So that's what I did.
That's good. That's good. What about the rest of you, some of you? What led you to be a part of this missions trip? What made you make that decision?
I've always wanted to go on a mission trip to see that I could make a difference in someone else's life in some way or another. But little did I know that my life would be changed as well.
That's good. All right, one more. One more person.
Originally, I wanted to go on the mission trip because I had a school project that I could use it for. But as we approached the date of the mission trip, I began to start thinking less and less about how I could use it for academic purposes and how I could use it for spiritual purposes, because that was really what it was about, both the spiritual growth of the community that we visit and my spiritual growth as well.
That's good. Now, maybe some of you who haven't spoke yet, what was maybe one of the most challenging things that you had to do on the missions trip, or what was one of the biggest fears you had leading up going on the missions trip?
For me, the first time we went door to door in the neighborhoods, it was I was pretty nervous about just walking up to somebody's house and knocking on their door and talking to them about Jesus. But after the first time doing it, it got a lot easier, and the people there were really nice and just hungry for Jesus.
Yeah, that's good. All right, somebody else? One of the things that challenged you the most on our missions trip?
If you notice in the video, the people who live in Belize are darker skinned. They are Latino type people, or they look like the people from Africa, or the people from Caribbean. And as you can see, we are not dark skinned at all. And I felt like initially I was like, oh wow, we really stand out, like, as my grandma used to say, a fly in a pot of rice, except it was the other way around. And, I think that mattered or jumped out more to me than it did the people of Belize. And like others have said, going door to door to people you don't know and saying, hey, can I pray for you? Or, hey, will you come to church with me? We stopped at one house, and Mr. Richards said, okay, here we are in Tea Kettle, jump out and go door to door. And we're all like, what? And Luke, bless his heart, jumped out and just walked up to this house and started talking to these men. And they were just as friendly as could be. And Luke said, come on, go to church with me. Little did we know that there was a drug deal going down while Luke was going up there talking to these people, but they were just as friendly as they could be. But I think just the fact of being in a different country, entirely different accommodations from
Yeah.
what we're used to here. Good night. We just don't know how good we have it. We
That's
don't.
right.
We just, so many things we take for granted. But that, just going door to door
Yeah.
and telling people about Jesus was.
Let me mention something about that. So we're in the car. Picture this. We're in the car, in the van. Mr. Richard, he has taken us into the Tea Kettle Village. And just before letting us go, he said, guys, I just want to let you know. He said, these are some nice people. He said, they are very nice people. He said, now, they just don't have anything to do, right? They just don't have anything to do with their time. And he said, so they kind of get wrapped up in things that they shouldn't be wrapped up in. And he said, drugs being the number one. And he said, and so, you have some folks who are kind of deep into drugs, selling drugs, and there have been some murders that have taken place. And I'm like, why would you say? I got 2 moms in the van right now. Are you serious, man? That's kind of, you just need to chill with that. But he said, oh, don't worry, don't. He said, it's all drug related. He said, they only killed because, one of them owed money to them, they didn't give. I was like, oh, okay. And he said, all right, so you guys go on out and God bless, do a good job or whatever. And we're like, oh my goodness, okay, all right, God be with it. I mean, we did some praying during that prayer walk, but I'm like, why would you say that right now? So, yes, for sure. Anybody else, maybe 1 or 2 more people, what was one of the biggest fears you had or one of the most challenging things that you faced during the trip?
So it was going to Belize was my first time out of the country, and I was kind of scared about that. But when we got there, I was really worried about the type of people that were going to be there, like if they were going to be mean or how they were going to act. But they were some of the nicest people I've ever met. They were so loving and caring, and they were just great people.
Good. All right.
It was pretty much my first time going out of the country. So it was kind of new. You're experiencing like a different culture and how they do everything differently. And it was I was kind of nervous about going and seeing how like accepting these people would be about like going on a prayer walk and praying with them, because certain places that you go in Goldsboro, I don't know if you could just walk up to anybody and ask them, hey, can I pray with you? So it was just kind of different to see how how accepting and thankful that they were for you guys to be there.
Yeah,
So.
they were very receptive. They were. I have just a few more questions for you guys. One of them is this. What is one of the biggest things that you've learned or gained from this trip? What's one of the biggest things that you've learned or gained from this trip?
Something that I've learned is to be content with like what you have and to always be thankful, because just like walking around the villages and stuff, their living conditions, weren't really great at all, and just seeing some of the houses that were built, like it was like 4 pieces of sheet metal just about, and like just some straw or some wood on top, and so just realizing how good we have it and to always be thankful for the blessings that we have. It's a lot easier to say that, but then like when we actually go there, it's just like, wow, it's so eye-opening, and it's just really humbling. So.
That's right. All right. Somebody else?
For me, a theme of our week was, plant the seeds, plant the seeds, plant the seeds, and God may or may not bring the fruit. We may not see it, but He'll bring it. And I think this week was a good our week in Belize was a good example of just a lot of planting seeds, and it just kind of reinforced the impact that relationships have, because like Luke had said, Mr. Richard and Miss Rosa had said, we have a ton of mission groups that come in, they do these big revivals, and then they leave, and we need people in the community, we need people just doing the door-to-door and forming relationships with these people. And I think it was Jacob that had said, we were doing it one day, and he's like, why can't we do this at home? And that's exactly what the trip was for me, was just thinking about how to apply it back here, and how important relationships are, and how hungry people are, even here, because Belize was a lot like United States. A lot of, especially our part of the United States, a lot of Belize knew about Christ. their grandparents went to church, so they knew the story of salvation. You know, they knew about the cross and what Jesus had done, but they didn't necessarily believe it was real for their life. Mm-hmm. And I think that's how a lot of our church can be, like our churches as a whole in the United States and especially in the South. So just reminder that relationships matter and Christ worked through relationships. And certainly, I had told Luke this last night, but we may have not seen a ton of fruit from the people of Belize, but with these guys, it was there. And just cool for us because they were in 5th and 6th grade when we came to Stony Creek, so just to be on this trip was pretty special. Yeah, that's right. Just a few more questions. Guys, I want you to explain to us, you know, how have you applied what you've learned from the missions trip since you've been back in the States? How have you applied that to your life since you've been back here?
I would kind of echo what Lee already said about being content and just realizing how blessed we are. Of course, definitely growing spiritually on the trip. But one thing that really resonated with me was talking with Miss Rosa one day, and she was talking about what a blessed country Belize was. They had a hurricane that came through, and no one lost their life in Belize, and she was talking about the Zika virus, and they had not had any babies born suffering the effects of Zika. And as she was talking about what a blessed country Belize was, I kept thinking, lady, these people live in, like Walker said, these sheet metal houses that are just put together, and there is no central water or county water like we have. It's well water, which they can't even drink. The people who can afford it go and buy water. Yeah. The people who can't afford it drink the water and deal with the consequences. There is no AC there because electricity is so expensive. I think Mr. Richard said it's like 40-some cents a kilowatt. So even the hospital, the pink building that you saw, and the Palm Center, the mental facility that you saw, it's all open air. There is no AC there. The grocery stores are AC. The minimum wage there is $1.75 US dollars, but gas is $5 a gallon US dollars there. A pack of Kraft singles was 15 US dollars. But yet she kept talking about what a blessed country Belize was, what a blessed country. The church that we had VBS in was a one-room cinder block building, concrete floors. We went to worship there one night, and there were, again, no AC. The fans were running. Bugs were flying in. They were hitting the fans, and they were splattering on my friend here, Jacob. And then the bats came in, circling around the one-room church building while we were there worshiping. And I thought, you know, we just don't even realize how blessed we are. You know, and it made me reevaluate what a true blessing is.
That's right. And one of those bats hit the ceiling fan and fell directly from the ceiling onto a guy's collar right here, just like that. And a guy from the back of the church, not missing a beat, he just walks up and goes, and throws it out. Man, how blessed we are that we don't have to worry about, you know, bats coming in during our church service. But as we close this morning, we've run out of time, but I just want to let you know, if you have in any way contributed to this trip, whether it was through our 5K fundraiser, whether it was donations that you gave to us to take to Belize with us, maybe you donated to some of our team members, we just want to say thank you so very much, because you are a part of this team too. You help plant seeds in Belize. And you know, one of the things that I heard in preparation for this missions trip, and really missions trips that we've gone on in the past, is like, why in the world go all the way over there out of the country and do work when there's work here that needs to be done? And while that may be true, let me just tell you something right now. When you take somebody out of their everyday life, their schedule, and out of their culture, and you put them somewhere else, there is something that takes place in their hearts. And it wakes their heart up. And they realize while they're on their trip, just like you heard Leah say, Jacob said, it was the middle of our week. He said, you know what? Why can't we do something like this back at home? And that's why missions trips are so important. We certainly want to go and help people. And we want to do what we can to bring the word of Jesus Christ to people all over this world, because that's what we're called to do. But let me tell you something. There is a heart transformation that takes place. And let me tell you something else. Because they went on this trip, this past Friday night, we had a patio night over there at the point on the patio where we eat pizza, we play a little bit of volleyball, but we have a worship service. And so you want to know what some of these guys did? They went over to some of the neighborhoods, and they went door to door, and they did the exact same thing that they did in Belize here in the United States. And they invited people to come to our patio night, middle school and high school students, but for everybody, when they went to their door, they said, is there anything that we can pray for you about? We're from Stony Creek Church, and we just want to pray for you today. And I'm telling you, it is crazy, the response that we got, just how touched people were by that. And let me tell you something else. We had 3 middle school and high school students come be a part of our night that night. And as they walked in the point, they said, how have we not known about this? Like, wow, we want to come back. And so that's what it's all about. Because this is the thing about God. You can't outgive Him. So as you go to those other countries and you bless other people, guess what? He's going to bless your community too. And so I just wanted to share with you just a little bit, while it was still fresh on our hearts, the impact that has been made, not just in Belize, but in our students' hearts. Because just like Leah said, we've known some of these guys when they were in 5th or 6th grade. Some of them were scared to pray. Some of them were scared to give a devotion. But man, let me tell you what, they were bold this week. And they did some growing that only God can bring. And so I want to encourage all of us, let's stand together right now. We planted some seeds in Belize that we believe are going to bring some fruit that will far surpass us. But because of your help and your contributions and helping us get there, you planted some seeds in our heart that we will never forget and that will continue to grow. And so I want us to just take a second to pray and thank God for the work that He's done, because it's all about Him. He is the one that equipped us to be able to do the things that we did in Belize and that we're going to do here in the United States. And so I want us to join together right now in prayer.